game is an amateur game. I mean, the professional side of it, there are idols and heroes and fun to watch them play. But I mean, if it wasn't for amateur golf, there would be no golf.
You have to remember, when you play a golf course and you're out there for 4 hours or whatever, you're only hitting a ball for 15 minutes of that. So there's a lot of time to look around.
Right, welcome back to another episode of the Top 100 Clubhouse podcast. I am Jasper Miners, and I am joined today by Andrew Harvey from Golf Club Atlas. Welcome, Andrew.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to talk golf as always.
Yeah, it's going to be good, especially something that's near and dear to both of our hearts. Is golf in Canada, and you're right in the thick of the golf season. Well, coming into the thick of it, I think maybe the peak season is July, August in Canada. At least it was in Western Canada, but that's where I grew up, born and bred in Saskatchewan, and then raised in British Columbia. Where are you from, like, originally? Are you Toronto born and bred?
No, so I'm a Western Canadian as well. Born and raised in Lethbridge, Alberta, which, right kind of in between where you call home in Canada. And 2019 or so, I moved to Toronto, just sort of looking for a bigger city and maybe a bit of a different pace. And I've been here since. So yeah, love it out here.
Very good. So yeah, Swift Current and Lethbridge. We should be talking about the WHL and the ice hockey, but anyways, the season's past. Anyways, we digress already. We're a minute in. The reason why we wanted to get you on was you're obviously the managing partner at Golf Club Atlas now, the very well established golf course architecture forum and website that was founded by Ran Morissette of architectural fame, I guess you could say. The man that's in the know and has been in the know for many years, and has probably taught more people about golf course architecture, including myself, through his website than perhaps any other individual. So you're working with Ran now on Golf Club Atlas. Prior to that, you were at Beyond the Contour, which was an excellent website that I really enjoyed, and it kind of revealed perhaps more than I knew about Canadian golf and golf course architecture, even though I grew up in the country. But Canadian golf, it's interesting. We've chatted about this numerous times, really, whether that was through DMs or conversations at the PGA show or whatever it might have been. But there's really no general consensus on, like, the best golf course in Canada. And actually, what we've kind of found is that there could pretty much be as many as like 5 number ones. Maybe you can speak a little bit to that. I think currently in the World Top 100, which we've recently updated, and it was a bit controversial, we have St. George's at 1, Jasper Park Lodge at 2, and then Cabot Cliffs at 3. So I mean, that's leaving out some big names that don't make it into the World Top 100. And obviously the world ranking will set the top 3 courses in Canada as well. So St. George's, Jasper Park, and Cabot, we've given it away. But then you still have some, like, big ones like Banff Springs, Capilano, Toronto. You could go on and on. So Hamilton is another one, Cabot Links, Cape Breton Highlands. So maybe you could speak to that a little bit. It seems like every person that you talk to, the general consensus, I think this is the interesting thing, is as we've spoken and as we've got lots of feedback from our panelists, the consensus number 2 across the board, and this is why we put it into the World Top 100 where it was the consensus number 2 across the board, no matter who we asked, was Jasper Park Lodge. It was the second best golf course in Canada. But there's pretty much no consensus as to what the best golf course was, which is very odd. But maybe you could speak to that. What are people expecting? You're comparing like apples and oranges. You've got Banff and Jasper up in the Rocky Mountains, and then you've got in and around Toronto, Southern Ontario, St. George's, Hamilton, and Toronto, kind of like all vying for that top honor. So the ones in Southern Ontario probably better than anyone. Why is there such a disparity between those ones?
Canada is so fascinating in that regard. I mean, you think of, like, the US, for example. I mean, there's two maybe, right? Like I'm a contrarian, so I think Shinnecock's the best golf course in the US, and there's but generally it's two, right? Like you might have a couple people choose Augusta or Shinnecock or whatever, but it's really just a battle between Cypress and Pine Valley. And um, Canada, for example, I mean, when I first started really looking into golf courses, I mean, there's basically the way that to summarize this is there's the Thompson Five, so that's Banff, Jasper, Capilano, St. George's, Highlands Links. There's the
Mm-hmm.
Harry Colt Two in Toronto and Hamilton, and there's the Cabot Two, so Cabot Cliffs and Cabot Links. And so it's pretty hard to dispute those are the 9 best golf courses in the country. And so even with that, I mean, there's people that would argue all 9 of those is number one, depending on who you
Yeah.
talk to. I think they're all so close in quality. I think there's a bit of separation between the top 4 and 5 and the bottom 3 or 4, like for me personally. But
Mm-hmm.
there really is close quality, and I think that's mostly because they're almost different genres, if that makes sense. Like they're very different golf courses. Like even Banff and Jasper, I mean, they're in the Rockies, but
Yeah.
Banff is sort of this like heroic examination of one's game. You're almost like brought back to life. Of the scale of the Rockies is there, but you're almost brought back to life and being like, okay, now you have to carry this bunker if you want the best angle. And it's very like, it's almost like a chess match, versus Jasper is almost like this uh, Heathlandy journey through the senses, and it's kind of quirkier and unusual, and there's blind shots, and it's just like they're two very different golf courses, even though they're like on a map they look identical. I mean, they're 4.5 hours apart, but like they look very
Yeah.
close on a map. And so Toronto's kind of Heathland style, Hamilton's very hilly, St. George's is like kind of that American championship golf course almost.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not the best terminology for it, because back in the day they wrote about it being like a bit of Scotland and Canada. That was sort of the inspiration. But today it's presented as that, and it's hosted the Canadian Open, etc. And then obviously Cabot is sort of that the Bandon modern minimalist link style golf. So it's like they're very different experiences, and they're very different golf courses. Even though I mean generally it's either the same architects, like I mean 3 to 4 of them, or
Yeah.
but they produce so much different products in that. So that in itself is such an interesting part of Canadian golf, is debating that number one, and I think it's a really spirited debate every time it comes around.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting one because, I think when you think about, to use, it feels odd for me to have a conversation with a fellow Canadian talking about British golf is like my home golf, but we'll give it a go. So to use in England, we think about Heathland, that is the golf that we have. And then you think Scotland and Ireland, well, that's links. And when you think about Canada, it's like, well, no, you've got links in a certain format, Cabot, and then
Mm-hmm.
you've got like Heathland equivalent in Toronto for Southern Ontario courses, 3 mentioned, and then you've got Rocky Mountain Golf. And I think that's the good thing to keep in mind too about there's a big difference between some like mountain golf. I, I was on last year. I was on a trip, and I was very fortunate to play Jasper Park Lodge, which is, I mean, I don't think it's any surprise how much I love it. I think it is probably with my heart my favorite golf course. That in West Sussex, if I was to be put to it. But beyond that, so Jasper Park Lodge, Banff Springs, which I was able to, very fortunately, growing up, I was able to play it quite a lot, and I got to play like a new mountain course in Rock Creek Cattle Company in Montana,
Mm-hmm.
Tom Doak's course, and to play those like basically all within a day or two of each other, and to see how good mountain golf can be if it's done right, is like spectacular. So the game transfers very, very well. to some sites in the mountains. Sometimes it doesn't. I mean, I think you and I would both be cut from the same cloth in the sense that if I'm playing a golf course where I have to have a cart to just make it from one green to the next tee, probably not going to
Mhm.
rank as high on my list as a course that's eminently walkable, which all
Of
three of them
course.
are. So, um, it was interesting. You're one of my favorite follows on Twitter. Some of us still use X or Twitter, and it's just the punchy rebuffs to when people are talking nonsense. But it's always a good follow. So if you haven't followed Andrew yet, give him a follow on X. It's quite entertaining. But there's a little bit of a chat. We're recording this just a couple of weeks after the Canadian Open. And the Canadian Open this year was held at TPC. Was it the Osprey? I think that's right.
Yeah, so it was the North Course at TPC Toronto. The full name is technically TPC Toronto at Osprey Valley, and then the North Course of the three there.
So 3 courses there. And I'll be honest with you, like outside of the majors, I don't really watch a lot of professional golf. I love the Ryder Cup just because it's a different format and it's usually when it's not in Europe on a compelling golf course. And if nothing else, it's it's theatrical. Uh, but I just seen this conversation and kind of like a back and forth about the venue. So traditionally, the Canadian Open's always been held in Southern Ontario, as far as I understand. But with such a massive country, would it be beneficial for that tournament to see a different part of the country? And if so, what are some of the courses where you would like to see a tournament like that being held if it was possible?
Yeah, I've been pretty vocal about this. I have no issues with it primarily taking place in Southern Ontario. I mean, I live here now. It'd be hypocritical of me not to be like, I get it, right?
Yeah.
Toronto's kind of where all the money is in the country, and like there's something like 50% of the country lives between sort of this Southern Ontario corridor and Montreal and Ottawa. Like it really is a very, very hotbed for the country.
Hmm.
With that said, I mean, if you're going to call it a national open, like there needs to be some due diligence in making sure that that's an actual applicable term. And I know, like, so the main argument is like, RBC main base is in Toronto, which completely
Hmm.
fair. It's about 4 blocks from where I am right now. And I get it. Like corporate boxes and hospitality and et cetera, they move the needle in terms of like, a P&L line. But um, Calgary, for example, is a city of like, the surrounding area of Calgary is like 2 million people now. And it's like
Hmm.
Vancouver is 4 million people and Montreal is 6 million people or whatever it is. And it's like, these centers, if you listen to the old golf commentators, the old voices in Canadian golf, or if you listen to somebody try to justify it, they make it seem like they're going to these small markets. It's like, Calgary's 2 million people. It's like if they can get like a British Open or the Open Championship to Royal Portrush, it's like you don't think you could host an event in Calgary?
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
a
so
really
it's
good
like,
point.
ugh. And I get it. I
And
mean,
you know as well as I do, like, if you live in Alberta or Saskatchewan and there's any type of event that is out of the norm, even if you're not a golfer, you'll show up because it's something to do and it's just there's a bit of life off the farm. Um,
mhm.
Spent a lot of times like literally driving around looking for stuff. As soon as you got your license, you could make it into town and not be stuck at the farm. You would literally be driving around looking for something that was happening, and whether that was 6 guys in a car park or whatever it might have been, you wanted something. And that's the thing. Canadians will travel for things to do. So you're absolutely right. I think in any major metropolitan area, whether it's 2 million, 4 million, or even 1 million, they would probably have a decent turnout just because people are looking for stuff to do.
Well, it's a decent turnout. And like, so I'm gonna pick on Calgary because I'm from Calgary. Vancouver's seen
Hmm.
the event in 2011, and the argument is like, oh, it didn't do so well at Shaughnessy in 2011. But at the same time, it's like, okay, now we're going into 2026. That's 15 years ago. There's no concert. It's a different date. It's a different experience. Like it's a completely different event. And same thing with Montreal in 2014. People sort of cite like Royal Montreal is sort of like this. I mean, it's difficult, obviously, to get onto Il Bazaar, which Royal Montreal is literally on an island.
Yeah.
But it hosts a President's Cup. It's like, I feel like I'm going crazy when we talk about this. It's like, if you can get a President's Cup once every 15 years or 20 years or whatever it is, you're telling me you can't get a Canadian Open at Royal Montreal, Laval, the new Hillsdale that's coming up. That's going to be a big ballpark. It's like once every 10 years. You don't think that's possible? Like, I honestly feel like anytime I talk about this, I feel like I'm going crazy, because it's just like, I watch there's a US Open next year at Shinnecock Hills. It's 3 hours from New York City.
Mm-hmm.
There's a single road into the Hamptons. It's like, I feel like, if it were me, if I'm at the helm of this tournament, and I think I'm probably a bit too extreme for that, but if I had the reins, there's a really good 10-year rota, or 10 or 12-year rota, or whatever you want to call it, where it's like Shaughnessy out west. There's some lease questions around Shaughnessy, and it's a bit of a shame that they should probably, I think, if Golf Canada and RBC were doing like the right thing, they would make it work before 2031 and say,
Mm-hmm.
2029 or 2030, we're going to do a Canadian Open. It's an iconic venue in Canada. It's to me, it's a really understated great golf course. I'm not going to tell anyone it's a dope gate or anything, but it's some really subtle, cool stuff from A.B. McCann, who's a great Canadian architect, Irish originally, but mostly spent his life in Canada. So Shaughnessy there. There's obviously some naming issues with Mickelson National and the PGA Tour now. I don't think that's ever happening, but Glencoe is
Mm-hmm.
down the road. It's not a great golf course necessarily in terms of like what you'd want to see a National Open on, but I think people underestimate Calgary in terms of like the Stampede is one of the biggest events in the world, and the best event on the Champions Tour year in year out is the one in Calgary. So it's like, you kind of have empirical data on like these events work. They're very successful. The Calgary supports their hockey team very well. So it's like, that's where I would be going. And then pick your 5 or 6 golf courses in Southern Ontario, right? So St. George's probably once every 10 to 12 years is realistic. Hamilton likes it a little bit more. They like it every 5 years. So do with that what you will. Oakdale, maybe, if they want. TPC North has to be there. It's Golf Canada's home now. It's just not viable to think it's not going to be there. Places like Lambton and Coppenwood and Goodwood, they're all big enough. They've all been talked about. I guess Goodwood's called Avalon Club now. And then you go to the east, and you go between Royal Montreal, Laval, and Hillsdale, which will open next year from Rod Whitman, and that's going to be a big ballpark. It's like 7,500 yards. And from a logistics standpoint, that's almost better, because it's not, it's a bit out of the city, but towards Ottawa. So that's the way the city's growing. It's close to the Mirabel Airport, and it's sort of like this home, and it's taking 36 holes down to 18. So this big space, big space, brand new facility. That would be probably my rota. I think I'm forgetting one, but that's generally what I would do.
Top100golfcourses.com has set the standard for golfers worldwide, and now you can wear that standard proudly. Premium apparel and exclusive gear for those who truly know the game. Shop now at top100golfcourses.com.
Maybe we just dive in a little bit before I want to talk to you really about 2 more things. One, maybe we start off with your current favorite, and we don't ask you to. You already told us what your favorite or what you think the best golf course is. Shinnecock. You're not the first one to say that to me as well. I think there's quite a few in that kind of upper echelon: NGLA, Shinnecock, Pine Valley, Cypress Point, and there's probably 1 or 2 more you could throw in there that have their proponents. But when it comes to Canadian golf, you've played and seen more than most, and you're familiar with all the greats. For you, what is your personal number 1 in Canada?
My personal number 1, Jasper Park Lodge. I've been pretty adamant on that. I would say for many years. I completed the top 10, call it, like any of the ones you could argue in 2022, and I felt really strongly that I think Jasper is probably the most complete of the golf courses. The other one that I would personally argue also for, and I would have no issue if anyone told me otherwise, would be Cabot Links. I think that's about as good of a golf course as you can get. And I think the difference being, Cabot Links versus Cabot Cliffs, I think Cabot Links is a bit more like an onion, where it's like every layer unveils something new, and it just sort of gets better with every time you go there. And not that Cabot Cliffs doesn't, but I think Cabot Links in particular, it just sort of like, it's almost like that old school, British Isles links, where it's like you learn something new every day, and it never gives away its full secrets, and you could play that thing 200 times, and there'd be something new to learn. So those would be my top two, I think, pretty clearly.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've had that conversation before. Thank you very much for sharing that and going on the record, if you will. But Rod Whitman, I mean, it just shows like some of his work in Alberta, up around Edmonton area, and then what he's doing in Revelstoke. It's going to be really interesting to see how that comes out, because the man knows how to build golf courses, and he's one of those individuals that it's like this unsung hero of Canadian golf course architecture and building that probably most individuals have never heard of. But if you want to play good golf in Canada, Rod Whitman is a really good starting point. If you can just like whittle down his golf courses, you'll probably not be disappointed if you have a choice between him and someone else's. So that's very good. I mean, you basically have the Jasper Park Lodge. I think is probably for me, it's one of the most complete golf courses that I know of, and that's with fairly comprehensive playing in the UK and Ireland, and across kind of the upper echelons in the US. Yeah, Jasper Park Lodge just it has everything you'd want, and it also gets you in the heart too. So it ticks a lot of boxes. But you have a great golden age golf course architect in Stanley Thompson, and then a modern great, if you will, Rod Whitman. So yeah, two good courses. Now here's the other question on the back of that. Cape Breton, Highland Links. If they could restore playing corridors and blow it wide open, would it be in the conversation to be as good as the two that you've just mentioned? Because that's the one that's like always considered to be one of the greatest in Canada. But when a lot of people visit it, it needs a little bit of help, and it's still great where it is.
Yeah, it definitely needs a bit of a haircut. I think Highlands Links is the best golf course 1 through 8, 14 through 18. Like, there's very few moments. Like, if you go play Oakland Hills, for example, there's many moments at Oakland Hills where you're like, I can't believe I'm playing here. The fairway, the contour is so big, the green slopes are crazy. Like, it's sort of like that, Muirfield, where you step up, you turn the corner on 6 and you're like, oh my goodness, this is insane. Or Montfontaine, when you crest the hill on 7. Like, there's 8. There's examples of like big scale feel, and it just sort of feels like you're in a place that's meant to be one of the world's best. And I guess you could define that as a sense of place, but there's almost like a grandeur to it, or grandeur. Highlands Links is very much like that, in terms of like, you play these holes through like some of the most insane fairway contour you've ever seen in your life. And we're talking like 60, 70 foot swales, basically. And you go, I mean, this could be like the best golf course in the world. And I think the middle stretch just lags a little bit, in terms of it lags behind a little bit of the other golf courses. I have Highlands Links in my top 5, because it's hard to ignore how amazing that place is. And it still it needs a bit of a haircut. And in terms of that, I think the conditioning could be slightly better. Not that I necessarily put a huge emphasis on conditioning, but I think it kind of allows more people to see what the architecture geeks might.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, I think for sure Highlands is in that conversation comfortably. I think it's in that conversation now, if you really look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, We've got some brilliant photos on the website. So if that's one that's new to you, I think most people that listen to the podcast, golf in Canada as a whole might be a bit of a blind spot for them. But they've probably heard of like Toronto, St. George's, Hamilton, obviously with a lot of the
Hmm.
tournament connections and the Colt connection. Jasper Park Lodge and Banff Springs obviously are two iconic golf courses. Banff less so than, or Jasper less than Banff, but hopefully we can shine a bit of a light on that, especially after the last year they had, and this being the centenary year. So that's quite exciting. And I know Ian Andrews done some work with them after the fire to try and get things back to where it needs to be. So um, yeah, really looking up. But if Cape Breton Highland Links is not one that you're familiar with, it's well worth having a little look online. Head over to the website, take a look at that. And if Stanley Thompson is a name that like doesn't ring a bell for you, then it's well worth spending a little bit of time looking at his portfolio, because he was consistently very, very good. No matter where he was, whether that was on the west of Canada, right through central, and then all the way out to the other side. So, yeah, Stanley
Hmm.
Thompson. What do you think? Greatest, greatest. I mean, obviously, we don't want to, tempt fate or anything like that with the current practicers of golf course architecture, but the west of Canada has produced like some. I mean, Stanley Thompson wasn't from the west of Canada, but at the minute, there's quite a few shapers and architects from Western Canada. They're doing some really good work. Um, do any of them, do you think, have a chance to rival Stanley Thompson when they're at the end of their career?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the obvious one is Rod Whitman, and it just depends on kind of how his career ends. He's getting a little bit older, so
Mm-hmm.
he's got Hillsdale, Revelstoke, the Ranch in Florida for Kenny Bask, Thornburg, or the Tribute in Oregon, and there's one more that I'm forgetting. But anyway, these places, it's like he's got 7 or 8 golf courses in Canada right now. It's nothing crazy. He's got one in France and 2 in Germany or whatever it is.
Yep.
But all of a sudden you start getting up to like 15, 16, 17, 18 golf courses. And if they're all as good as they currently are, you kind of go, okay, now there's a conversation to be had versus like, Stanley Thompson is kind of known as that Thompson 5. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's 30 to 30 solid ones probably.
Yep.
And, you kind of get into like, there's some of them, it's hard to know what's sort of been mangled with a little bit, but, maybe his floor is a little bit lower than Whitman's. So time will tell. And then obviously, guys like, Josh McFadden's a shaper for Gil Hanse
Mm-hmm.
and Jim Wagner. So he's got a lot of potential, and he's young enough that if he starts building golf, I mean, who knows with him. Obviously, Trev Dormer now with King Collins. He's a Western Canadian guy. Riley Johns with Keith Rebb. He's a Western Canadian guy. So I think there's a lot of people in good positions to do so. It just obviously, and in some respect, they're almost all chasing Rod Whitman, who's chasing
Yeah, yeah.
Stanley Thompson.
So here's the question. So what is it? I mean, when you list off all of those names, and you and I included, like if you were to include, well, basically Saskatchewan West, so Saskatchewan, Alberta, British Columbia, what is it in the water that's got us? Is golf in Canada, in the west of Canada, either that good or that bad that it's all kind of put us down this path to understand, like, either to be involved in commentating on golf course architecture, working in golf, trying our hand at shaping, like all of these different types of things, all the way to having your name as the named architect on these projects. What is it? I've thought about this and I've never really been able to put my finger on it.
Yeah, and Rod Whitman's a Western Canadian guy too, right? He's from
Yeah, yeah.
Anoka, Alberta, so just north of Calgary. But when I think about it, at least when I think of my journey and talking to some of the other guys, it's a little bit of both, right? It's holy cow, the golf is not very good in some spots, but the land's good.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to a place like, I think for most people, me and I'm sure you to some respect, and some of the other people, it's like you go to Banff Springs and you go like, okay, this is so much better than what I play at home. And obviously
Yeah.
there's good golf courses around, and there's definitely like if you were smart in picking where you were going, you could put together a fun little trip through Alberta or Saskatchewan or whatever. But it's not like there's an
Absolutely.
abundance of great golf courses, and that's obviously partially population and that it's a pretty desolate place and at times. But
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, I think it's the dichotomy between like there's these two, three, four, whatever you want to call it, world class golf courses, and then we all go back and play our literal cow pastures, and you go, okay, what am I missing? Like you just and all of a sudden you just start to unravel the mystery, and then as you know, and as I know, it's like it's this rabbit hole you never come out of, and all of a sudden
No.
you're researching what holes Tom Simpson designed in France, and you're just like, I can't even believe where I'm an Albertan, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and you're stuck outside Paris, yeah, eating some really crazy cheese, drinking some beautiful wine, and,
Yeah.
trying to unravel which of the greens on the Valier were the originals on the big one. Anyway, yeah, it's, I'm glad I'm not the only one because, yeah, it's good to know that there's more than just yourself that's found themselves in this, kind of weird underworld rabbit warren of golf and golf course architecture. So let's just chat a little
Mhm.
bit about that. You've just spent a bit of time in and around London, my stomping grounds at the minute, and over to France. So we were going to plan to get out to my home club, which is Royal Worlington. The Sacred Nine, as it's known. Next time you come over, we're definitely going to get that. I think Ran is going to come up in August, so be able to
Nice.
get a round or two in with him, hopefully. The invitation's been sent anyways, and he accepted. Whether he follows through or not, I don't know if he's just being kind, but we'll see. Um, but what did you see in England? Was it your first trip over or not?
Yeah, so I've been to Scotland before. I've never been to England, and I've never been to France.
Okay,
I played 22 golf courses in 12 days or something. Like
is that it? Okay.
it was a pretty heavy golf trip. I called it a work trip. The guys were giving me kind of ears for not taking the day and walking around in Paris, but I mean, play a couple morning rounds and go walk around the city in the afternoon, and you kind of see it all. So very action packed. In England, Sunningdale, Swinley Forest, Cinque Ports,
Hmm.
Sandwich, Hunter Combe, West
Nice,
Sussex,
beautiful.
Hankley Common, the Berkshire.
Yeah.
Um, I think I'm forgetting one or two, but I'm not trying
Walton?
to.
Did you make it to Walton or Woking?
I
Those are
didn't.
kind
It
of the
didn't.
yeah,
Yeah, I really wanted to, but the timing just didn't work. This
yeah.
trip, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, 22. The ones that you've rattled off. I mean, St. George's Hill is another one.
Yes,
Obviously,
played
I've
that
got a
one. Yep.
vested interest in there, so that was a good one for you to see. Hopefully, the next time you see it, there'll be some significant changes. You would have seen the tree removal on at least the back nine. Continue to do
Mhm.
through there, so that's good. Hopefully, that continues apace. Um, the Addington is that one that you've
I
the
saw the Addington.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, really good. Ryan was actually talking with Ryan on the phone this morning. So yeah, lots of big plans there. The kind of the second half of the original seventh green is going in this year. They've got Purdue, which is like the alternative hole, new tee box on 3 going in. Yeah, loads of stuff. I mean, that project still has a long list, and it's just going to get better and better. So
Mhm.
lots of exciting stuff. And we could do an entire podcast just on what you saw in London, and then Paris. You filled your boots around Paris as well. So it was interesting. Most people, I think, kind of go like Morfontaine because it's such an elite club. It's not an easy tea time to get, especially in France. Um, Most people walk away, but it was actually another course in France that stole your heart. Which one was that?
Yeah. I want to start by saying like Morfontaine is superb. Obviously,
Absolutely.
it's a very understated. Club aside, it's a very classy golf course. Like the architecture is very classy. It
Hmm.
doesn't overstay its welcome. It's a very gentle wandering routing. But for me, I walked away thinking like Fontainebleau was, I mean, that's a insane golf course, really. I mean, you start on this like, I'm trying to convert meters to yards in my head, but it's like 350 yards, the opening hole, and you tee over three kind of like top shot bunkers to this
Yeah.
rollicking fairway, and then you play to this green bench in this hillside with like these exposed rock behind it, and you have this crazy false front and this really great Simpson green. You go, okay, this is insane. And then you play sort of this semi-blind par three with the green tucked behind the rocks. You go, okay, like two holes. Like, I played lots of golf courses with two really good holes, and then it just never lets up. You tee off from the high side on three, from the top of the hill down. You play like it's just a crazy golf course. I think what I look for, or what kind of captures my heart, I would say, is generally things that are very unique in identity.
Hmm.
I think we could play like the championship golf courses of the U.S. I mean, there's so many good ones, but you could play like, and I don't want to be sacrilegious here because they're all very good, but they
Yep.
sort of all work in their same genre.
I know
If that
exactly
makes
what you
sense,
mean. Yep.
like
Yeah.
you
Really,
kind
really
of know
good
what
Parkland golf.
really, really good parkland golf, and you go, I know what I'm in for. It's
Hmm.
exceptional. I'm gonna have a great day, etc. And a lot of them are truly elite. I mean, Oakland Hills is superb, and Winged Foot's really good, and some of these places are truly exceptional. But I think Fontainebleau for me, part of it was like not knowing what I was going into in terms of
Hmm.
like I knew it was gonna be good. I had a friend go, Zach, who wrote for Beyond the Contour, and he was like, yeah, I love this place. He's like, it's amazing, best golf course in France. And he didn't play Morfontaine, but he was like the best of the group that I saw. He played most of the same stuff that I did, and then
Yep.
so I knew what I was getting into in terms of like it was probably gonna be pretty good. Generally, we're aligned, um, or close enough that like I'm not gonna be let down. But then I go and it's like there's so many unique holes.
Hmm.
I mean, 12, for example, the last 100 yards, you're hitting a wedge over these tiny little boulders. It's like I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah. Do you know what the only other, so like modern course that kind of like has any, and you could say desert courses and stuff, but it's not the same.
Hmm.
But when you look at some of the stuff that Tom Doak's doing at Punta Brava,
Hmm.
where he's got like some of these exposed boulders as well, and you just kind of think, I wonder if there was like some sort of thought of saying, Fontainebleau is like, it works really well there, and why
Hmm.
why not here? And that, I think, is the beautiful thing about golf course architecture, is that you could say, well, it should never work, and why would you have rocks exposed? And but then it's like exactly what you said about like Highland Links and Fontainebleau. It's like there's just really crazy topographical features
Hmm.
that make the site unique, and good golf, the elements of it overlaid on that site, still work really, really well.
Hmm.
Um,
And I think, yeah, I think like my big takeaway from Fontainebleau, or not big takeaway, but like sort of reaffirmed it, is if you sat in an architecture 101 class
mhm.
and you said, I want to put boulders short of the green, the guy teaching it would probably, or the woman teaching it would be like, no, it's not
Yeah,
good. Like, don't do it.
exactly. Yeah.
Highlands Links, it's like there's too many blind shots. Like, Shinnecock, you shouldn't have to play to the outsides of the dog legs, or whatever the rules are. It's like these are generally principles that, as we understand it, are sort of architecture 101.
Yeah.
And I find most of the really great golf courses break those rules. I mean, they
Find a
really
way to do it. Yeah.
find a way to do it in a way that like you're kind of cresting over a hill, but the fairway peels back so you know where the aim points are.
Mhm.
And just like they break the rules in a very tasteful way, and and in that it gives it its own unique characteristic and personality.
I think that's really astute. I mean, yeah, what a great way to put it. Because that's the thing, like you can see some golf course architects now, and I've sat in the room with a lot of the practicing architects here in the UK, and I think a lot of them are starting to get more of an appreciation for the classics and golden age design, and like what made strategic golf what it is, and they can sing off the hymn sheet. And a lot of what they're doing and recommendations that they're making for local clubs like start to align more and more with what we've known for years. um, but then you're right, to get to that next level, so now you're creating good good golf on a decent canvas, or great golf on a really good canvas. just by following those kind of tied and trusted principles of golf course architecture. And then you get to like basically the genius level where it's like throw all of that out and I'll show you something you've never seen before and break all the rules and it'll still be better than.
Mhm.
And that's, I think that's what you get. Simpson's interesting because although he was English, other than kind of like poking and prodding, a lot of his new build stuff was Ireland
Mhm.
in the British Isles, if you will, and kind of like flirting with courses like Cruden Bay and Muirfield. But there's not a lot of Simpson to be had, and it seems like in England, a lot of the Fowler Simpson stuff is more Fowler than Simpson. Um,
Mhm.
so, but yeah, to see Tom Simpson in his like full flow is pretty special golf. So, no, that's great to hear. So, when you make your next trip back, obviously we've touched on a couple of courses that you'd like to see. Maybe it's just the question: what makes, well, two questions: is the best golf in Canada as good as the best golf in Europe? And two, um, what course maybe would you like to see next time you come back? What's on the top of your list? Two questions to finish with.
Mhm. I try and come at this with the least amount of bias as possible, because I honestly I don't want to be the guy that's, you know, just waving the Canadian flag. I love my
Yeah.
country, obviously, but I don't want to be like, oh, look at us, we have great golf too. But every time I go somewhere, it just sort of reaffirms that like the truly great golf courses here have their place in the discussion internationally. Um,
Yep.
and so what do I mean by that? I go to Moorfontein and Swinley Forest and, Sunnydale New and some of these places that are like 40 to 90 on the list, of a world list or wherever they fall. And you
Yep.
go, yeah, I mean, I could see 5 Canadian golf courses coming in here. And I always thought Rand was sort of an outlier on this because Canada for years had the third or the fourth most custodians,
Mm-hmm.
on the custodians list. And I think the new one coming out has 6, so it's still very high. It's like Scotland, England, U.S., and then Canada and Australia, I think, are both tied with 6.
Yep.
And I always thought like there was something to that. I mean, he's obviously one of the most well-traveled, well-read individuals.
Mm-hmm.
But every time I go, I'm just like, yeah, I think, the top 7, 8, 9, top 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever you want to call it in Canada, they stack up really well. And truthfully, if I was telling someone from France, for example, like doing the reverse of what I just did,
Yeah.
I would think it's a little bit harder because Canada is about 75 hours to drive coast to coast, maybe 80.
Yeah.
It's a little bit harder than France, where it's like most of the stuff is concentrated around Paris, and obviously there's some of the stuff in Bordeaux I want to see, and Hardelot and La Touquet and whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
um, I would say there's probably 15 to 18 golf courses that I would send somebody to, and if they liked it, then obviously you could continue to go deeper because many of the great architects in the U.S. worked in Canada as well.
Yep.
Whether that be Allison or Tillinghast or Walter Travis or Mackenzie, like any of
Mm-hmm.
these guys all worked in Canada. So you could have a really good, and the big thing, it's not caddies, so you're not coming over, and it's not mandatory caddies to see all of the great golf in Canada. 2, the dollar is bad, and
Mm-hmm.
or maybe not bad, it's the bad word, but it's like the conversion's good for pretty much
Yeah.
anybody
If you're
traveling to Canada.
exactly. Yeah. I don't mind going back home now.
It's much harder going the other way.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. But you can see some really great stuff on quote unquote budget, even though you're flying overseas. And I think that's especially true for Americans now, where like some of the British Isles stuff has gotten pretty insane.
It's
Um,
hefty.
it's
Yeah. We've,
hefty, right? Like Sunday, so, yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, you're spending the thicker part. Well, I mean, if you take current conversion, um, you will spend, if you're paying a rack rate, not an industry rate, you don't have a member guest, you're just off the street. Um, Most days out in London at a top tier golf club are going to be in the region of £400 to £500.
Hmm.
Um, you will get some that are a little bit less, but if you're playing 36 at Sunningdale, like especially with caddies, once you pay for your meals and your 3 lunches and drinks for everybody and tips and all the rest of it, like you'll be in for the thicker part of £1,000, which is 2,000 Canadian dollars for a day of golf.
Yeah.
It's one of the best days of golf you'll ever have in your life, but it's still not cheap for the average punter.
Hmm. Hmm.
Where, this is interesting because I think at the minute, we actually did a little bit of a deep dive, and maybe this is a taster for anyone who's listening to the podcast, what's coming up. We oftentimes get slated on top 100 because we cater to like the elite golf courses of the world. And people have always said, why don't you do a ranking? It's, courses that normal people can play. I said, okay, we'll do it. So we did it. And what's interesting is that uh, 2 of the most affordable golf courses to play in the United Kingdom are Trump Turnberry and Muirfield. If you're willing to go and play in winter. So if you're willing to go in December or January and rock up on a Tuesday or a Thursday, you can play Muirfield. I think it was £150 and £35 for the
Wow.
best 3-course lunch that you'll ever have in a golf club. And probably the best roast that I've ever had. I mean, there's some good ones at
Pretty
the
good.
golf courses. Yeah, Troon, Prestwick, Muirfield, Sandwich. I mean, they all do a decent roast. They've been doing it for long enough. They know how to do it. The fact of the matter is that for 150 quid, you can get into like 2 of the top tier golf courses in the entire world. And I think Turnberry might even be a little bit less than that for a winter rate. So, okay, you might have to play off a mat if it's really been wet and dire. But the alternative is fight the American tourists and pull out your credit card. So I think that's the beautiful thing. It's not necessarily now about whether you can still, probably the average punter can still afford to come and play golf. It's just a matter of when they can come and afford to play
Hmm.
golf. Because tee sheets are full, and there's always, it's amazing. I love it. It's amazing still. I was talking to I won't say which one, but I was talking to a club the other day that I want to go and see, and it's well up the world top 100 ranking. It's on the thick end of the top 30. Anyways, and I said, look, I'm really sorry to ask, and is there any way that we could come and see it? And I'm quite happy to walk and stay out. I'll be out there at like 5 a.m, or I'll be out at 8. I just want to. I don't even want to play. I just want to see the course and see some of the work that they've done recently. And they were like, do you know what? Because you made such a nice approach, like we can always find room for you. And I love that these
Hmm.
golf clubs are still run like clubs. They're members clubs, and the secretary still has a bit of discretion. And if you make the right approach the right way, even at some of these quote unquote elite clubs, you can still get a long way if you're willing to be human and speak to an individual with a bit of respect and dignity. So yeah, it's a wonderful thing. Anyways, we said that we were going to stay on for about half an hour, and we've ended up doubling that. But hopefully, this is the first of a few more podcasts that we'll be able to do as we get together and continue to discuss the finer things of Canadian golf course architecture from 2 Western Canadians talking about golf here in Britain. Anyways, as weird as that all is, thank you so much, Andrew, for your time, and may this be the first of a few.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.